Chapter 1187, the first full chapter following Brook's backstory, and this is exactly what was asked for. Beyond cutting away to anywhere that's less important, even though I'd say there's nothing going on at the moment that isn't important and doesn't deserve page time, but it's the big hitters that are getting the attention here. And the anime is not confirmed yet, but it may be airing its two 13-episode cours back to back, so after One Piece Heroines airs this weekend, the anime should be continuing afterwards, even though this latest episode, 1168, would be the biggest cliffhanger to end on, with the reveal of the Holly text and the mural. And before getting to this chapter, I'm going to focus on that for a bit, because there were some additions or clarifications during that scene that give us more to think about, to decipher. So we have Robin reading out the Holly text that Soul pulled out for her, and we have a very good look at the cover here. We can see it in chapter 1138 in the manga, but it's just one single small panel, so the details on the front cover can't be made out, but here it's clear as day. We have the same sun symbol we've seen before, 8 smaller circles surrounding a larger central circle. We've seen this in Kuma's church on the crest of the Kozuki clan in Wano. On the shield we see Nika carrying in his depictions. We've seen it in Skypiea. There are similar variants like the alabaster crest. Such shapes can be seen in the mural on the moon. The one Enel saw, it's on the sails of some ships in the mural that are assumedly on our side. So this sun symbol is basically all but confirmed to be the symbol of the ancient kingdom maybe. But within the central circle is a tree running through the middle, again just like in the mural. People have said that tree may be Elbaf's tree, the treasure tree Adam, and it could be. Elbaf and the giants have already proven themselves to be the closest race to Nika, but Soul has told us there are multiple Adam trees in the world, so Elbaf's isn't completely unique, it's just the absolute oldest one. So maybe it's the sun tree Eve, whose roots reach all the way down to Fishman Island and provide light, so it's a safe assumption to say that it extends to the top of the red line too, in Marijwa somewhere. So it's a tree at the center of the world, so it would be fitting if this tree is the same as the one in the Holly text, as in on this cover and in the mural. This could also be the devil fruit tree, but maybe the sun tree is the devil fruit tree. Then on either side of it on the cover is a sun and a moon. My mind went to first the idea of Skoll and Hati, two wolves that in Norse mythology chase the sun and moon without end until Ragnarok, where they finally catch them. As for One Piece, we have Luffy as the sun god, but who is the moon? I know one idea is Zoro, because Emu is the earth and Blackbeard is the void of space, but as much as I love Zoro, I've never seen him as integral to the true history, as in he's undeniably important to Luffy becoming the king of the pirates and the liberation of the entire world as a member of the Straw Hats, but not so important that he represents a celestial body on the cover of Elbaf's religious text that tells tales of the sun god. You know, it's not impossible, and if it does happen and makes sense, then I'm all for it, but not every character has to have some kind of grand connection to the Void Century or something, especially the crew whose biggest connection is to Luffy, to each other. And another addition is during the second world, where Robin reads out the sea god stormed, and we get a visual of water or the ocean flooding the screen, which would surely be conveying the sea levels rising, which we know thanks to Vegapunk was 200 meters. But Vegapunk also says he came to the conclusion that due to how sudden and drastic the rise was, this couldn't be natural and it must have been caused by the ancient weapons, using the Lucia and the modern sea level rise as a point of reference. But this new shot in the episode makes it seem that it was the sea god that caused the sea levels to rise. So was Vegapunk's hypothesis incorrect, or was it the fact that the ancient weapons caused the sea levels to rise alongside the sea god, so it had multiple causes, and that's why it was so quick, so massive? Or what if it's that there isn't a sea god in the way we've come to view them, like sun god Nika or the recent rain goddess Zaza, who does seem to be completely separate to the sea god, but those two have insane powers to go along with their name, seemingly natural powers. So what if the sea god doesn't have abilities in that traditional sense, but instead it's more like a title where the one who wields the three ancient weapons becomes the sea god because they now command this insane power? For example, Shirahoshi is the ancient weapon Poseidon, who can control the seas and the sea kings. Uranus is capable of destroying islands to open up and raise the seas, and then the battleship Pluton is used to traverse the seas without equal. Bring those together under one individual and you have yourselves the sea god. There are most likely other additions or effects the anime has added that could shine a different light on the mural and the text, although these, the cover and the water rising, are what stood out to me the most, but the episode was so good as a whole too. I was expecting the Harley mural scene to be epic and grandiose, but instead they went for something more mysterious and kind of overwhelming in a sense, how it's supposed to be so incomprehensible, which I did not mind at all. That scene was amazing. Now onto the chapter, picking up right after Luffy reminded Emu whose story this is. The fight is now on, and for once Luffy isn't fighting on his own, completely on his own. He isn't coming in to fight in a one-on-one because he's taken over from whoever whoever else who's already worn themselves out. Loki and Ragnar are still in this. For sure they are going to be tired, but they aren't out of commission. So Luffy has help. He has an equal next to him. For now, because Luffy is trying to tell him he needs to get some rest, and it is clear that as much as Loki was able to hold his own in this fight, being able to knock Emu back and making him bleed, Emu is also very clearly stronger and nowhere near as fatigued or injured as Loki is now, but for the moment Luffy isn't alone, even though it does shape up to be a one-on-one by the end of the chapter. So it's Loki, Ragnar, and now Luffy versus Emu, who, as he's flying back and before crashing from Luffy's punch, he uses the omen to create two sentient flames that attach themselves to Luffy's shoulder and to Loki's chest, and from what we see, I think it's acting as some kind of target or beacon for future attacks. Loki has been temporarily marked, maybe similar to Minato's flying Raijin technique in Naruto, where he inscribes his mark onto something and can teleport to it, though that mark is permanent, while this I do think is temporary. Emu has marked Loki with the flame, and now he can specifically target that spot without fail, so in a way, with how Ragnar's ice is unbreakable, this ability is unavoidable, so take your pick over which one's more useful. And there doesn't seem to be any kind of limitation on how Emu places the mark either, he just does it. The talking flame just appears wherever Emu wants it to appear. They say he told them to go to where Loki was stabbed earlier, which would be from when he was impaled by the Nemesis sword, so they do follow Emu's will. Again, it reminds me of the relationship between Big Mom and her homies. They are fully talking to each other as if they are alive, they have a soul, like two guys given a task at work, and they're just making sure they're doing the job correctly. And notice how Emu creates another flame in his hand, one with a unique design. Its lower half is in the shape of a bell, and the sound effects, the musical note in the panel does tell us it's making noise. There was the whole thing with the village and the trees coming to life and singing when Emu first arrived too, so there is some kind of musical motif with Emu's abilities, one I'm really gonna pay attention to, since my biggest takeaway from Brook's backstory was that the One Piece is gonna be a sheet of music that Brook's gonna play for us. Music is very important, but since he creates a new flame for the attack, so maybe it's two separate techniques. The first one where you attach the omen to the target so you have one guaranteed hit, and after that Emu can use any other ability he has for the attack. It doesn't necessarily have to be this sword every single time, it's just whichever ability Emu wants to use in the moment. Sounds a bit like Gunko's ability. Her and Emu already had the similarity of the arrows, though we now know Gunko's is from her devil fruit while Emu's is the tail we see as a part of this form. Her arrows also have a guaranteed hit ability, at least that's what she told Loki back when he was chained up, though I'm sure it's not always a certain hit. Maybe another good comparison for the ability is with Darkseid Omega Beams. That ability is gonna track its target wherever they go, so maybe once the omen is attached to a target, Emu's next attack will also follow them wherever they go. Although we don't really see that in this chapter because obviously Loki isn't gonna run away and him and Emu are right in front of each other. But this isn't a small attack either. The sword goes straight through him in the front, out of the back. Kind of looks like a sword shooting a beam out of it. It's just whatever the omen is, it's the most versatile power in the entire story aside from Luffy's powers, but those can be explained and be understood using the nature of his devil fruit, while with Emu, for now, all we know is that the omen can just do stuff. Maybe it's malleable in the sense that it does whatever Emu wants it to do, so in a way it would be very similar to the Nika fruit, which would make for the wildest fight this story has ever seen, which fingers crossed we will get to see next chapter, judging by how this one ends. We see the crew failing miserably to break the ice, and for some reason it's the two Straw Hats who have the least sensitivity, Brook and Frankie, who are the ones trying to see if the ice is cold or not, as if bone or metal. Without any nerve endings is going to be able to figure that out, and Loki ends up landing right on top of the ice, and Emu's attack caused him to drop Ragnar, so it also falls onto the ice and it does begin to melt, purely from the hammer making contact, so it doesn't seem like he or Loki as his master need to have the intention of wanting to melt the ice. As long as contact is made, it will begin to melt, whether they wanted to or not. And with Ragnar, I'm assuming as Shuri is slowly being freed, or the Galilar giants are freed in the future on Punk Hazard, or when they were frozen in the first place, it doesn't cause any actual damage to the person within the ice, but they are still completely trapped, rendered completely immobile. Is it a Dr. Stone situation where they are awake the entire time, and if they have the mental fortitude they can count how long they've been in there? Or are they asleep, unconscious? Probably that one. But if Emu in this form was hit by Ragnar's ice the same way he was in Gunko's body, are we saying there's no way at all that Emu's gonna be able to get out? Because that's kind of broken. Also, I'm sure it means it's never gonna happen, but Ragnar's ice, the Niflheim attack, is like the ultimate win condition, since no one else can break it. Whether there is more to this though, some detail that we don't know about that makes it not as unbeatable, unbreakable, we don't know yet, or if what we know now is all there is to it. The ice at the moment having no counters makes it the best move in this fight, though I'm also assuming it relies on Loki's speed, because if you're able to dodge the attack, then you'll never be trapped in it. Emu was able to kind of slither out before as if the ice wasn't even there, though that was because it was Gunko's body that was trapped, while here it would be Emu's actual body that gets trapped. But Shuri very soon is going to be freed from the ice, but that's only step one of what's most likely going to be a multi-step process. We don't know if she's going to wake up straight away. We don't know if Emu's brainwashing is still going to be in effect, if Gunko is still in the driver's seat or not, meaning we still might have to bring Shuri back, and our best chance to do that is to just have her listen to Brook's voice or to see his face. I know it does sound cliche, but if Shuri is trapped in her own mind and can see everything that's happening, then even if she isn't in control, seeing Brook could be the boost that she needs to wrestle back control of herself. That will tell her again that she also has something to live for rather than just giving up and staying trapped. We don't know if she's tried to fight back before, but I'm gonna say she hasn't, because even if she did get free, for one, Emu would instantly put her back, but two, because there was nothing for her to live for back then even if she was freed, but now that's changed. Then Emu tries the same move on Luffy with the omen attached to his shoulder, but because it's on his cloak, he's able to throw it away and the attack does track it instead of him. So that should confirm the nature of the ability. If it attaches to your clothes or anything you can remove, then you are able to get rid of it, but if it attaches to your body, as it did with Loki, then you're kind of just gonna have to take the hit, because it's not as though Loki's gonna rip off his own chest. I mentioned how this homing attack being unavoidable is sort of a counterpart to Ragnir's unbreakable ice. If you shed or get rid of whatever the flame is attached to, then you can avoid the attack, so it would stand to reason that there's something more to the ice as well. Or maybe Ragnir's just that guy, the Ratatoska fruit is just that fruit. Then we move to the biggest hitters that aren't involved in this fight, because it's time to catch up with the other two members of the monster trio, Zoro and Sanji, who have the job of dealing with Sommers as well as Killingham and Zaza respectively. First with Zoro, he has arrived at the port to confront Sommers, who's prepared a new ship for the kidnapping, which we now know is more than just a simple plan. It's one that's been proven to work in the most dire situations, since this helped them claim victory during the Void Century. So these two have a little back and forth, but the first line that really stands out is Zoro saying one of the crew is heading over to the village and Sommers' colleague probably is not coming back because he's going to drop dead. We've had some smaller moments recently where Zoro and Sanji have indirectly expressed their trust and confidence in one another, but Zoro saying Sanji is going to be able to kill Killingham is probably the closest we've ever gotten to him giving him a straight up compliment. He's recognizing Sanji's strength, his strength that is gonna grow very soon, and I will get to that. But I always feel this means more from Zoro if he's the one saying it rather than Sanji, because for one, he is a lot more stoic, which isn't a bad thing because people convey their emotions in many different ways. And also, you may have heard this before, although I've never actually verified if it's true or not, but while Sanji has called Zoro by his name, Zoro has never called Sanji by his name. So whenever we get these moments of him expressing his trust, that's one step closer to Zoro calling Sanji Sanji instead of Crappy Cook or Twirly Brows, if it is actually true that he's never said his name. And the fight begins. Sommers, who has been boosted by the omen, so he's now Super Sommers, and these thorns do look way thicker and stronger compared to the ones we saw before, so he really has been beefed up. They were drawn before without being shaded in, while this is shaded in, so whether it's Haki imbued or it's a result of being given the omen, we have our visual confirmation that Sommers is stronger in terms of his devil fruit abilities and not just physical strength, since he did lift that ship on his own before. So this should be a good fight, sharp thorns versus sharp swords. Now catching up with Sanji, we are in the western village where Zaza is still rampaging. The giants in the area really can't put up any fight at all, and in the same way Sommers' thorns demonstrate that his fruit abilities have gotten stronger, Killingham being able to manifest and control this rain goddess MMA, created from his own mind, an adult's mind with full comprehension of his fear, rather than a kid whose understanding and fear is going to be less complex or thorough, meaning it's not going to be as strong when manifested, I think is also enough to show that he's been boosted by the omen too. I'm saying this just because it would be kind of underwhelming if the two knights didn't do anything bigger, and the only way we know that the omen boosted them is by being told that the omen boosted them. So it's good that we can see it in their abilities. And we have Sanji, who is analyzing the situation. He's considering different scenarios, different responses he could give. It's giving me similar vibes to back in Egghead when S-Shark was about to strike Nami. He said something like, rule 1 of Sanji's lore, if you scare Nami you die. Rule 9, if you make Nami scream you get beat. As in, he's a robot and these rules are written into his code. Now he's computing what the best course of action is to take, and this analysis of his does answer some questions like how is he gonna fight against or do anything against the Zaza MMA. The rain goddess is a woman, so that would be a no-go, but at the same time it's not real, it's an MMA, so would that be a loophole in Sanji's rules? No, it's not, which is a good thing because it shouldn't be either. Zaza is a woman, so that's all there is to it, meaning he can't attack, and instead of going going after the MMA, his decision is to go after the head of the operation. If he takes out Killingham, then that will take out Zaza. But even more importantly, Sanji knows the knight's weakness, and as he crashes into the houses, we get a mini flashback to back in the underworld where Gabon was talking about the importance of Conqueror's Haki, especially now given who they're fighting. And back then he seemed to completely dismiss Sanji, who was very excited that he could be the one Gabon was talking about, though it was Zoro instead who's had Conqueror's Haki since back in Wano when he was fighting Kaido using Nine Sword style, which I think is still Zoro's strongest attack to date. Whether all Nine Sword style techniques are now advanced Conqueror's techniques too, or he just happened to awaken it when using that move, Nine Sword style combined with advanced Conqueror's Haki in my mind is surely the strongest ability in Zoro's arsenal. But until Gabon told him, he had no idea that it was Conquerors he was using, and that does make sense because Luffy had no idea he was using his own Conquerors until Rayleigh pointed it out for him during their training, while Zoro has had no one else to point it out for him. So even though he's noticed something felt different and he has used it, he hasn't been able to use it to its full capacity. This is what we saw during that scene in chapter 1152. Gabon was pissed because he knew what was needed from Zoro, if he really wanted to help Luffy become Pirate King and beyond. Now we have a new scene from that same time before we all came back up to the Sun World. Gabon tells Sanji that he has the qualities of a conqueror, meaning Sanji is one of the special few who has the ability to use Conqueror's Haki. Remember, you can't train Conquerors to awaken it through pure grit. You do have to be born with it, but obviously you also need to work at the ability, so it can be useful to you beyond just being a fodder knockout machine. Not that I don't love the fodder knockout scenes, but in terms of practicality against a genuine opponent, it's not really useful at all. It does make me think though, back when Sanji first thought Gabon was talking to him, it wasn't just a gag, it wasn't just him trying to one-up Zoro, it was a genuine reaction. Maybe Sanji had been feeling different for whatever reason, and when Gabon said there's someone else who uses Conqueror's Haki, he genuinely did think it was him, and he technically wasn't wrong since we now know Gabon told him he does have Conqueror's Haki. I repeat, Sanji, Blackleg Sanji, cook of the Straw Hat Pirates bounty 1,032,000,000 berries, officially has Conqueror's Haki, though he isn't officially a user of Conqueror's Haki because he still has to wake it up. He has to work to actually be able to use it, but since it is a fact that you have to be born with it, it's not as though this has just suddenly appeared. Sanji has had Conqueror's Haki, so all that's left is to learn how to use it. Whether Gabon teaches him like Rayleigh taught Luffy, or if he just picks it up as he goes on his own like how Zoro's done it up to this point, maybe after the fight, because I still think we're gonna lose, or at the very least we're not gonna win. After Emu and the Knights leave, maybe then Gabon can teach both Zoro and Sanji more about it in a mini training arc, and it would be a lot smoother and quicker than Luffy learning it because these two are way more advanced now in terms of strength and Haki in general than Luffy was back then. And with Gabon understanding what it takes to really be of help to someone like Luffy with his goals and dreams, since he's been there and done that with Roger already, he also told Sanji this is what's necessary if he really wants to make Luffy the Pirate King. So on the topic of having the qualities of a conqueror or qualities of a king, one thing I like about it is the fact that it's undefined. What it means is up to interpretation. For example, Whitebeard never wanted to become Pirate King but rather have a family and use that strength to protect others, so that kind of nobility and selflessness are kingly qualities. And there's no one who can deny that Whitebeard deserves to have Conqueror's Haki. And Sanji wants to find the All Blue, something no one has ever done before. That does sound like the quality of a conqueror or a king too, so that term can be molded to fit each individual person who has Conqueror's Haki. It's broad enough that you can make the argument for anything to fit that requirement, because it's not definitive, it's not clear cut, and that's how it should be. So Sanji clearly has what it takes to use his Conqueror's Haki, but what's more relevant is what's holding him back, which is something Gabon can also sense. I'm guessing since it's directly tied to Sanji's Haki, that's why Gabon can tell, but Sanji's biggest obstacle is something he's been fighting since the moment we met him. His own self-hatred. He can't become a conqueror if he can't accept who he is, and it doesn't need to be reiterated, but you can go back to any major moment of his in the story and see that this is something he's always been fighting. When Zeph saved him that debt which stopped him from leaving the Baratier, how he never wanted to be a burden to the crew, so he always kept a part of himself hidden. Then everything with Germa, his family, and the source of his suffering, being told everything that makes him human, everything that makes him Sanji makes him weak. That gets carried forward from Whole Cake to Wano when he's fighting Queen. That's when his enhancements awaken, so he went from confronting his past in Whole Cake to kind of becoming his past in Wano. And now we are here where all of this, his entire life, his experiences, his choices are pivotal to him taking the next step, and that's really good. It's not Conqueror's Haki for the sake of Conqueror's Haki, it's gonna be embedded into who he is as a person. Then it's back to the the headline spectacle where Luffy appears before Emu having now turned Gear 5. I don't think it's really set in for me that we're seeing this so soon. This was meant to be something saved for the absolute endgame, and yet we're getting it now. And he has no sandals on. Code Red Luffy is barefoot, meaning this is as serious as he's ever been before. No smile either, though I still think the most disrespectful thing he can do is laugh straight into Emu's face. Anyway, there are debates over who is the real final villain between Emu and Blackbeard. I think they both are. The final war isn't going to be like fight one and then move on to the other. It's going to be one massive convergence where everyone's going at each other at the same time. All three of Luffy, Emu and Blackbeard will be there fighting each other. But now we are really seeing Emu having been revealed or unveiled in a new form, since it seems the other black form isn't actually a silhouette after all, but we are seeing Emu against Gear 5 Luffy. I really want to know if the Holly text has anything at all to say about Emu, because we know what Robin read out is basically more of a summary, a synopsis of each of the three worlds. And when Loki emerged in his Needhawk form with Luffy in Gear 5, Yorl mentioned how that was written in the Holly text too. A giant beast and the sun god will appear. So there's definitely way more to the Holly text. Even if not by name, it might mention some demonic figure or black fire. It just makes sense that the religious text that revolves around Nika would also, even if indirectly, mention one of his, if not outright his greatest adversary, you know? But also the same way that we understand just how monumental this moment is, I want the giants in story to understand that as well. They know who Nika is, so they understand the magnitude of Luffy in Gear 5 at least, but do they understand the weight of Emu being here too? I don't want the epicness of this moment to be lost on them. Anyway, Emu says, "You finally appeared, Joyboy," and whenever he does this, by the way, calls someone by their Void Century name or counterpart, I take it as him insulting them, as if to say, you aren't even your own person, you're nothing but an echo of someone I used to know. Even though you're the one standing in front of me, they feel more alive than you do. And the way Luffy responds is exactly how you'd expect him and exactly how he should respond. The most iconic line in the entire story, and the one line that's the core of why Gear 5 works so well in the bigger picture. Luffy is no one except for himself. For all the weight that everybody else wants to put on his shoulders, he will just shrug it off because he doesn't give a crap about any of that. He is Monkey D. Luffy, the man who is going to become the king of the pirates. Remember when he said this after he turned Gear 5 and Kaido asked who he is, as if to tell us he's still the same guy, no epiphany, no realization of whose will he carries. He's the same greedy, selfish, stupid yet incredibly empathetic idiot that he's always been, and it's this same greedy, selfish, stupid yet incredibly empathetic idiot who is going to save the fucking world. Not because it was prophesized, but because he will simply do whatever the heck he wants to do. The stage is really set now for Saint Nerona Emu versus Monkey D. Luffy. I can't remember how I've described some other major chapters in the past in this arc, but with moments like the mural and the Harley text, the God Valley incident, like Emu taking the combo attack from the strongest characters in the story, Emu and Zebek and Garp and Roger, Emu's descent in Elbaf, both descents using Gunko and personally coming down. I have probably described them all in pretty much the same way, saying they are some of the biggest chapters in the entire story. We can add this one and the next one to that list, and it doesn't need to be explained why. Actually, I do remember I specifically described chapter 1163 as the biggest fight in the story so far. That was the massive combo attack chapter, but as for an actual fight and its significance to the story, this one surely beats that chapter out. And let's not forget, the monster trio is soon to be the Conqueror's trio once Sanji figures out how to use it. With everything that's already happened and with how ridiculous it's all been, I think it's safe to say that we have now here finally reached the climax of the Elbaf arc.